Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dome at Home for Thursday, September the 26th, 2024. I'm your host, Scott Young, planetarium astronomer at the Manitoba Museum, and it's great to be back for another show. Always good to hang out with the Dome at Home family and friends, and there's been so much happening in the sky recently. Lots of cool space stuff to talk about, lots of upcoming events going on, so we're going to have lots of things to chat about. As always, we love to see where you're observing from, where you're watching the show from, and what you think about what we're talking about. I'd love to see the comments and questions and things like that. The chat goes back and forth between our YouTube and Facebook channels. So if you ask in one channel, it goes into both. So that way I can sort of monitor everything at once. We have had some really clear nights here in Winnipeg the last couple of days. It's been beautiful. I've talked to a bunch of people that have gone observing and spent some quality time under the stars the last couple of nights. And it looks like we're going to have some more clear nights. We're also sitting at 30 degrees Celsius today here in Winnipeg for September 26th. The average temperature used to be on this day would have been about 15 degrees. So I think we're losing the winter peg moniker that a lot of people have painted us with. We had some really, really nice weather, and it's just stretching farther and farther into the fall. That's okay. I mean, some of you will know I'm not a heat guy. I like fall as my favorite time. It's a great time for observing. Finally, the sun is setting earlier. We're getting a little bit more night. You don't have to stay up all night to get your fix of the stars, but to each their own. Okay, we got a lot of people checking in. Nice to see you all joining us here. Hi, Ulrika. Ulrika says, so excited about the comet. Yes, the Comet Tsuchinshen-ATLAS is going to be our main discussion point today because it's an upcoming comet that looks like it's going to be putting on a good show. Whenever they discover a comet and they say, oh, next year this is going to be the brightest comet in X years, I never believe it, because most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time all that happens is halfway to that point they say, just kidding, looks like it's not going to happen. This one seems to be performing. Now, right now, the only people that are getting good views of it are in the southern hemisphere, and we'll see some images from Chile a little bit later in the show. So you're not missing anything this week. But I would clear your schedule for around October 10th, 11th, 12th through the 14th. Those might be really good nights to be out someplace where you can watch the sunset. Anyway, we'll get more into that in just a little bit. And we got some of our American contingent in. Hi, Hollis. Nice to see you. And my buddy Bob from elementary school. It's nice to see folks joining us here. Hello, everyone. All right, let's jump into things. I've got a couple of things that I wanted to let you know about my place of employment, the museum, because there's some neat things happening there that I wanted to let you know. And there's also some things that if you just come down and aren't expecting it, you might get thrown for a loop. So the good news is the museum is getting a bit of a facelift. The main entrance of the museum is being rebuilt. They're finally going to put in a really nice accessible ramp and proper stairs and glass, and it's going to be much more inviting. The downside is right now that whole area on Rupert Avenue, just off Main Street, is closed off with construction stuff. So if you do what most people do, you go down to the museum, you park north of the museum in either the lots there or on the parking meters, and then you walk across the street to where the entrance used to be. You can't get there. You have to go around the building and go over onto basically down Main Street. So this is the entrance that people used to, oops, I didn't want to click that apparently. This is the entrance that people normally go in, and there's the upstairs and the downstairs. You have to go around the side of the building. Now, if you get over to here, there are some stairs here that go up and then get to a ramp. If you need accessibility, there is a ramp that gets you all the way up there. Unfortunately, it's over on the other side of the planetarium. So it takes a little bit of effort to get up there. I'm really sorry about that. It's one of those things that we have to, we have to make a mess to make things better. But this will affect any of the events that are happening in the next couple of months, I would say. And if you have any issues, you can always email us in advance. The museum's still open Wednesday through Sunday, and for special events and things like that. So the construction is intriguing and is going to be a good thing, but it's a little bit of a hassle right now. Oh, hi, Wing. Nice to see you. Glad you're here. We've got a couple of things you'll be interested in. The other thing, you want to come and work with me? We're hiring. The science communicator position is basically the people that do planetarium shows and science demos and things like that. We're looking for a bilingual science communicator. And we're also looking for the equivalent in the museum side of the building, doing museum tours and school programs and things like that. So the full postings are on our website, manitobamuseum.ca, and we're definitely looking to hire some new people. This is your chance to come and work with us. Now, this is something that I got sent this, the One Great Lottery thing, and it says the Manitoba Museum is one of the charities that are part of it. I hadn't heard of it when people asked. I got a couple of people saying, hey, I got this email. Is this legit? It turns out, yes, it is legit. So this is one of the fundraising things that the museum's involved in. So if you get an email that says, hey, One Great Lottery, and we're now a part of this program. So it's a way to help support the museum. I just want to throw it out there just so that you realize it's not a fake thing, because there are so many things you can't trust out there right now that I just like to make sure that everybody knows this one's legit. Okay, let us move on to a couple of things here. I'd like to show you a few of the images that have been sent in to us since our last show. Oh, and I'm going to have to clean up definitely going to have to clean up the green screen there. That's not very good. And now my camera has disappeared. Excellent. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay. Can't go through a show without any technical issues, can we? No, of course not. There we go. Okay, so one of the things that I love to see is to see the images that you send me, whether it's pictures that you've drawn, or images, photographs, digital images that you've taken, or even just the stories of your observation. It's always nice to know that people are actually taking what they see in the show and going out there and trying to actually be a part of this astronomy thing and doing it on your own. So we love to see that. And I've got a couple of images here that people sent in for us. So let's take a look at a couple of them here. One of our regulars on the show, Andy Tsuchinshen, Andy and Ruby have been with us since the beginning, I think. You guys were watching the very first show back in the COVID days. Well, Andy's been is quite the astrophotographer, and he takes some amazing images. I get to see quite a few of them. And this was a shot of the lunar eclipse harvest moon last month. The forecast was terrible for Manitoba. I thought it was going to be cloudy. I didn't even bother setting up for streaming or anything like that. And then about 30 minutes before the eclipse started, we went from totally overcast to beautifully clear. I should have known, if I had set up my gear and been ready for it, it would have stayed cloudy. But anyway, I did get to see it just through my window, and I didn't even bother taking any pictures. So thanks, Andy, for recording that. That's a beautiful shot. It really shows the subtle shading of the Earth's shadow there. It just dipped into the dark part of the shadow right at the top there, but the shading of the penumbral shadow, the outer shadow of the Earth going all the way across the moon, they're really, really beautiful. It's a great shot. Ulrika also got some shots. They were out doing a little bit of lake vacation time and got some great shots of the moon rising over the lake with some aurora there. The color looks a little bit odd, and I think that's my display here, not the original image, because the original image that Ulrika sent was really, really beautiful. This one looks a little bit better, I think. There we go. But it's, you know, I love being out in a spot where you can hear water and the waves and things like that. It really adds a lot to being out under the stars, I find. But beautiful shots. And I also got out and did some astronomy. In fact, I managed to get my telescope set up in my new observatory. I am now part owner of an observatory that is way, way far away from my house, like almost a 2-hour drive. So obviously it's a remote observatory. And so once everything is all set up, you can just operate it from home. And so I spent yesterday evening taking pictures of the sky with my little 6-inch telescope. Nothing all that fancy, but I put all the bells and whistles on it so that I can control it over the computer. And I got my first image of the Andromeda galaxy back, and that was pretty nice. It's so dark out there. It's down towards the border. There's not a lot of towns around. There's really no local lighting, and it's really, really dark. And it's so amazing. And there's no trees. I mean, the best part, I don't have to worry about, you know, ducking between trees like I do in my backyard to see if I can find anything. So that is really exciting for me. I'm really hoping to do some nice imaging and also some science, because I've got the stuff that I need to do some scientific observations as well. So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to be into for the next little while. Hopefully we'll get some nice images. Oh, hey, Dale. You guys are down in that area, I guess. So you know what those dark skies are like. And Paul, yeah, no trees. I mean, you've got a nice setup in your backyard out there on the East Coast, I know. But yeah, there are a lot of trees, and it's not like you can just cut them down. So anyway, Tiffany asks, so you set up your telescope there? Oh, so, or is this one that people book time on? Yeah, so this is my telescope in a private observatory that's not available for like public use. There are places where they have observatories that you can just sign up and pay a subscription to and use telescopes to observe with. They're all set up for you, and you basically just tell it what you want to observe, and it automatically takes the pictures and sends them back. So I've used a couple of those as well. iTelescope is one of them, just the letter I followed by telescope. They've got observatories in Utah, in Chile, and in Australia, and in Spain. So you can see things that we can't see from here. And they've got everything from little cameras and wide field lenses to, I think the biggest telescope that I've used is a 20-inch reflecting telescope that is, I'm sure it's, you know, a $50,000 scope. So certainly nothing that I could ever afford, but for, I think it was $40 a month when I signed up, I was able to take some images with it. So those are definitely an option. Oh, and Paul mentions the Burke-Gaffney Observatory. The Burke-Gaffney Observatory is in Halifax and was put together by a mutual friend of ours, David Lane, who recently passed away, unfortunately, but he is, his legacy lives on. The Burke-Gaffney Observatory is available for anyone to use for free. And so if you go to the Halifax Dalhousie University webpage and go to the observatory, there's information in there, and you can literally tweet or send a text to the telescope, and it will then take your pictures and they'll be ready for you in the morning. It's really, really cool. And that one's totally free. So that's another option for people to do remote observing if you don't have your own gear. Okay, let us move on, because I could talk about my new observatory for a long time, but we've got other things to do here. Let me see here. Oh, sorry, we have one more thing. If you're interested in getting your own observatory, this place is for sale in Osoyoos, BC. It's the Astro Bed and Breakfast. And this was a place put together by Jack and Alice Newton. They used to live here in Winnipeg and were longtime fixtures of the astronomical community here. They retired out to the west coast in the relatively dark sky area, and they put together an observatory bed and breakfast. Well, they've decided to retire. They don't want to stay out in the wilderness and keep running the business. So it's available. I think the price on it was 1.4 million, which for a research class observatory is cheap. And I mean, it's got a revenue stream. So if you're interested in a business opportunity, it's funny that I saw this literally 6 hours after I sort of called my own remote observatory complete. And I mean, I'm happy with it, and it does everything I want it to do, but it's, you know, it's made of plywood, and it doesn't have a giant dome, and it doesn't have all these telescopes and balconies and stuff. So now I have observatory envy. I guess that never goes away. Tracy, yeah, you know what? That would be pretty cool. I think we need a collective of people to just go out there. It looks big enough that you could get like a dozen people living out there to retire out there and have this observatory. Oh, okay. Dome at Home is going to relocate to the top of the mountain in Soyuz, BC, and we're gonna buy this place. So if you're in, let me know. Oh, Paul's in too. Okay. Lou, you have a question. My comments on the demise of Orion telescopes. So for those of you that haven't heard, the company known as Orion, who also owned other companies like Meade and Coronado, those are also some telescope companies that Orion bought out recently, has stopped business. They closed up, which is really sad because the museum used to be an Orion dealer. We picked their telescopes because they were pretty much the best beginner telescopes. They really designed things for people who were just starting out. They didn't add a bunch of features that you didn't really need, but they had a lot of features that were just really smart. And they didn't just buy these telescopes from the same factory in China where everything comes from in the telescope world. They actually did a lot of innovation in-house. So their staff, who are all astronomers, would actually say, you know, this bearing system doesn't work very well. We're going to make our own. And so they had a bunch of products that you literally couldn't get through other companies, whereas many of the other telescopes, you know, you buy the white one from Skywatcher and the black one from another company and so on and so on. But it's the same telescope and it comes from the same factory. Well, they went through some hard times a little while ago, and then the employees got together and bought the company. And so they've been running it for a decade at least, and they were doing really, really well. But I think the increase in the mass-produced telescopes and also the push towards the so-called smart telescopes, the things that are, you know, the little it's a little box and you put it down and it's got a GPS and then it figures everything out and it starts taking the pictures and processes it for you, and you go from you know, I want to look at that to a picture of that in about a minute. They're amazing. But I think with those kinds of innovations, there's a whole lot of change that was happening in the industry, and they just weren't able to keep up, which is just really, really sad. I feel bad for the people there that I worked with and so on. They were all great folks. So I hope they all find places to go. There is still some Orion stuff out there. Many people were Orion dealers, and so they'll still have some stock. So if you see any of the Orion stuff that you've been wanting, grab it as soon as you can because it won't be around. The Starblast 6 was my go-to telescope for, hey, you want to have a first telescope? The Orion Starblast 6, you couldn't get it anywhere else. It was just a wonderful little tabletop Dobsonian, beautiful price point, really easy to use. Similarly, the Starblast 4.5, which was a smaller one, became the standard library telescope. A whole bunch of libraries in the States actually have telescopes that you can check out just like you would check out a book or a video or whatever. And that was the perfect version for that because it was powerful but simple and kind of indestructible unless you set it on fire or something. And just a wonderful telescope. And now those are gone. So it's really kind of sad. That's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Lou. I definitely am sad about that, and it's something that sort of happened without much fanfare. So I hope that this doesn't spell bad things for other telescope companies. One of the great losses was the company Coronado, which Orion bought. They made all sorts of specialized solar telescopes, and solar astronomy is really big right now because the sun is so active and doing things. And so suddenly those introductory level solar telescopes, the Coronado Personal Solar Telescope, for example, was about $800 as opposed to the several $1,000s of the sort of next model up. Those are going to be gone too. So you might want to grab one of those if that's something that you've been interested in. Okay, we have a whole bunch of people in on the observatory situation. Okay, so I think we're splitting $1.4 million at least 4 ways. It's getting better. That's good. Okay, keep going in the chat there. Maybe we need to start a GoFundMe. Anyway, there are a couple of events coming up I want to let you know about. The first one is tomorrow night. Jeremy Hansen, Canadian astronaut, is going to be here in Winnipeg. He's going to be at the Manitoba Museum's Planetarium Auditorium tomorrow night, Friday night at 7 o'clock. It's a free event. It's essentially rush seating. So you want to come down and get in line. The doors will open about 6:30. And Jeremy will be telling us all about his upcoming mission, which, if you didn't know, will make him the first non-American to travel out to the vicinity of the moon. He's on Artemis 2, which launches next year, and will take him and his 3 crewmates around the moon on a 10-day mission to basically shake out the Orion spacecraft and the first human flight of the giant SLS Space Launch System rocket. We've been talking about Jeremy's mission for a while, and here's your chance to hear it from the man himself. And we've been lucky enough to host him a couple times over the years. He joined the astronaut corps back in 2009. It's amazing. He's one of the new guys, and he joined in 2009. That's amazing. But he is a super nice guy, really genuine, really wonderful speaker too. So he's, some of the astronauts, public speaking might not be their forte, but with Jeremy, he's really a great person to watch. So come and visit us, and I'll be there, and we can chat after the show. And I'm not sure how long we'll have Jeremy. He's doing things all day, so we might have him for a few minutes afterwards. But regardless, it'll be nice to see folks. So come out for that. And remember, with the whole parking thing, you got to walk around to the front of the museum, unfortunately. But anyway, I guess I better tell him that too, so that he can get in the building. The other thing coming up, and this is kind of cool. So the local astronomy club, the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's Winnipeg Centre, is a group of almost 300 people that, just like us, they like astronomy. And some of them have telescopes, some of them don't. They do all sorts of meetings and events and things like that, and those are all open to the public. They also do some outreach, and so this is an example of some of the outreach. There's Southwood Circle, which is sort of connected with the University of Manitoba. There's some development that's going to be happening there, but there's all sorts of public outreach that they're working on. So the Astronomy Club is getting together with them and putting on a astronomy night. So it'll be basically a perfect time to see what's up in the sky. The moon will be up, Saturn will be up, its rings will be razor thin, so it'll be a really nice view. We might even see the comet right around then. That's just about when it starts poking over the horizon just after sunset. So you need to be there right for sunset to be able to catch that comet. But this is free, and if you go to the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Winnipeg Centre's Facebook page, there's a link on there with all the details, or you can visit winnipeg.rasc.ca. Oh, Wing, who's in charge of that event, just dropped the event details into the chat. Thank you very much. Great job, Wing. You're hired. You can be my chat moderator for a while. I did talk to Mike today. Those of you that have watched the show remember my good friend Mike Jensen, who used to moderate the chat and things like that. And he was speaking quite longingly about his days working with Dome at Home. So maybe we'll get Mike back for a show or two. That would be fun. Anyway, Southwood Circle Astronomy Night coming up. Great opportunity to see through telescopes. to chat with various people. I'll be there. The Astronomy Club folks will be out there, and it'll be a good time. So join us. Okay, now it's time to talk about the comet. You've probably seen social media stories about this comet that is coming. There are all sorts of pictures of it, and there are all sorts of reports that this will become the comet of the century, the comet of the decade, the comet of the whatever. Like I say, those predictions are always a little suspect, but this comet actually seems to be playing out. This is a picture taken from Chile, so far south, obviously, but by one of our good friends, Judy Anderson, who is down there for one of the eclipses. There's an annular eclipse, but it just so happened that it's also the perfect place to see the comet. The way that the geometry works out, right now the comet is sort of coming up from underneath the plane of the solar system. And so it's basically going to come up like this. It's going to pop up, go around the sun, and then it's going to dive back down right between the Earth and the sun. And the two things that make a comet bright are how close it is to the sun, so how much heat it's receiving and how much light is reflecting off of it, and how close it is to the Earth, because the closer it is, the bigger and brighter it looks. Well, it turns out that both of those things are sort of adding together, and thus this comet might become very bright. How bright? Nobody knows, and if anybody tells you they know, they're lying, or they're overstating their knowledge. But we can get some guesses. Right now, it is, this picture was taken in Chile, and actually I'll show you the other picture that was a little bit more perhaps representative. It's right at the horizon. It's barely above the horizon before the sun comes up and makes the sky too bright to see it. So there's a very limited window right now to catch it, even from Chile. I was thinking that we might glimpse it at the end of September in the morning sky from here. I don't think we will anymore. I don't think it's going to be visible from Manitoba until after it swings past the sun and then starts diving back towards us. We'll get basically a view of it as it does that. So, excuse me. Let's take a look at this comet, and we'll take a look at what it's going to look like from here in Manitoba, but also really from anywhere across Canada and similar latitudes. Now, for those of you in the United States or around the world that watch the show, the details will differ for your location, and you can always do what we do here on the show, is get Stellarium, the free program that we use to simulate the sky, and just set it for your own location, and the comet details are easily added in to the Stellarium program. There's basically, if you just check the manual, it'll tell you how to do that. So here we have our evening sky, and you look around, you see the glow of the sunset over here in the west, you see the Big Dipper over here, you see Boates, the herdsman, this sort of kite-shaped thing. We spent some time talking about Corona Borealis and that impending nova, T Corona Borealis. I looked at it last night. It hasn't gone nova yet. It's sitting right in about there. Maybe it'll go off on the 12th wing. We'll be able to see it there, the nova and the comet all together. That would be great. Anyway, I'm not that lucky. But this is the area that you're going to want to watch the sky for in the time of the comet. So I'm going to step through the time here, and that little bright thing that you see appearing there, that's the International Space Station. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but just ignore it for now. We're going to jump forward to basically the time of, there we go, the time of the 12th. So on the 12th, just at 7 o'clock, the sun is just going down. Venus is over here. Venus is already in the sky if you catch it right after sunset, but because of the angles of things, of the angles of the solar system at this time of the year, at this time of the night, Venus, even though it's pretty far from the sun, it's not very far from the horizon before it sets. So you'll have to catch it right afterwards. Right up over here is the comet. And in our stellarium view here, I hope you can see, it's actually showing that it's visible, even though some of these other things are not visible yet. It's quite, it's expected to become quite bright. Now this is on October the 12th, and we'll step through all the days in a moment, but the day before, on the 11th, it'll only be down there. It'll just barely be clearing the horizon. So I think about the 12th is our first reasonable time to be able to see it. Around 7 o'clock, we might start to catch it with binoculars. But then, of course, as the sun sets and the sky starts to get darker, the comet will become easier to see and harder to see. It'll be brighter, but it'll be down below the trees and things like that. And look, you can start to see the tail as the sky gets dark, just in time for it to go behind the trees. So there's going to be a very limited window, basically 7 to 7:30 for that time period. That's when you want to be already set up wherever you're going to be with your telescope or your binoculars or whatever. We'll go back to 7 o'clock here. I want to show you what the comet actually looks like. If we could see it without the effects of the sun and our atmosphere and the fact that it's setting and things like that. I'm just going to turn off the atmosphere here in Stellarium. There we go. The comet is already quite big, and it will be quite a bit bigger as it basically comes between the Earth and the sun. And it's got these two tails that point away from the sun. One of them points directly away from the sun. This sort of fainter blue tail is called the ion tail, and it always points directly away from the sun. It's basically particles that have been stripped off by the solar wind, and it's just like being blown in the solar wind directly away from the sun. This whitish tail is made up of bigger particles of dust that are released from the comet. As the comet comes close to the sun, the snow that the nucleus is made out of starts to melt, and it releases dust, and that dust is also blown off by the solar wind. But because it's bigger and heavier, it doesn't go straight out in a line. It sort of gets affected by the comet's motion, and so it will curve. And right now, that dust tail will actually be pointing kind of directly towards us. We're looking down the dust tail because basically it's between us and the sun. So there are a couple of times, this is back to the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, where that tail will probably be changing quite dramatically over the course of the visibility time that we have. Now, the good news is, as October goes on, this comet will become easier to see because it will be higher in the sky, but it also moves farther and farther away from us. And so it'll get fainter for that reason. So we'll be able to see it in a darker sky, but it won't be as inherently bright. It'll be interesting to see whether it's actually going to be at its best when it's closest to us, but in the bright twilight, or whether it'll actually look better, a week later when it's much farther away, but we can see it in a dark sky without the effects of twilight. So let's see, for example, this is the view at 8 o'clock on October 19th. The comet is in a nice dark sky. It's still well above the trees, so we can have a good view of it. You can see the tail fairly nicely. That, to me, looks like it'll be a good view. This is good because it's not like there's 1 day or 2 days where this is what you have to see, and if it's cloudy, you miss it. We're going to have a good couple of weeks, I think, of being able to see this comet in binoculars for sure, and possibly some of that time to the unaided eye. I'm saying it that way because I like to manage expectations. As one of my Aurora friends, Justin Anderson, says, expect, plan for the worst. Keep your expectations low so that you aren't disappointed. But go out anyway because you never know what you might see. That's the kind of thing that we have to do in astronomy because you just never know what Mother Nature is going to do with you. This comet, I think, is probably going to be one of the events of the year for sure, just because it will be bright enough to see in binoculars, and it'll be bright enough for the average person to take pictures with it. For example, the pictures that Judy took, these are just cell phone pictures. It's not like she had complicated gear, I think. So it's nice to be able to know that kind of stuff is possible. There are lots of folks that are shooting it with telescopes, and we're seeing some quite beautiful pictures online. We're also seeing, maybe not for the first time, but certainly the first time that I can really remember it being an issue, fake comet pictures. Either they're AI generated or they're just complete composites of other pictures. I've seen pictures of previous comets that have just been edited into shots, and there's a lot of AI activity on the various social medias. In fact, most of the groups that you're asked to join that are named like James Webb Space Telescope or Neil deGrasse Tyson or things like that, they are completely AI generated. All the posts, all the pictures, everything just completely made by robots. So take everything you see online with a little bit of grain of salt. But we are going to see a comet coming up in the next few weeks, and we are going to get a chance to see it. How good it'll be. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That was it, Ulrich. Thank you. Ulrich, you got it for me because I was about to say the saying and I just could not remember the words, so I had to butcher it like I did. Jacqueline's asking, when was this comet last viewed? We don't think it has been. Some comets, well, all comets come from the very far edges of the solar system, out beyond Pluto. There's a reservoir of icy small objects that are left over from the formation of the solar system. And that's where most of the comets come from. Most of them just stay out there. There's billions of them. But occasionally two of them will hit each other or pass by each other, and one of them will get slingshot in towards the sun, and it'll start going in this oval path. If it passes close to a large planet, like say Jupiter, its gravity can be adjusted. The gravity will adjust the path a little bit more, and you'll wind up with what we call a periodic comet, a comet that goes around the sun every 6 years or 10 years or 76 years in the case of the famous Halley's Comet. But those are the rarities. Most of the comets come in from the outer solar system, they loop around the sun, and then they just keep going. They might eventually slow down and come back in, but the period would be measured in 80, 90,000 years. So whether we see this particular comet again or not, it'll be really hard to link it to something that far in the future to this. So it might have come around in the past, but there weren't a lot of astronomy clubs 80,000 years in the past, I don't think, and who knows what we'll have that far in the future. So this is kind of our one and only chance at this. And it might actually be literally the only chance. It might just keep on going and never come back. That's one of the reasons that this comet was expected to be bright. The ones that come in the very first time, they're covered with all of the ice and all of the leftovers from the early solar system. As soon as they go around the sun, some of that stuff melts. And on its first trip through the solar system, a lot of the really volatile stuff just all disappears. And it's sort of, it's like something, the first pass through the solar system is the brightest. And then after that, it still comes through, but it's not anywhere near as exciting because it's lost a lot of that fuel that would make the brightness happen. So here we have potentially a first-time comet, and it's coming close to both the sun and the Earth at the same time. And so all of these factors are lining up. Now, on top of that, you can sometimes get what happens with comets, outbursts. Sometimes a comet will crack, and the stresses of coming close to the sun, the intense heat and things like that will open up a crater, and you'll get a geyser of material that suddenly makes the comet get a whole bunch brighter. That usually happens just when the comet goes close to the sun. This comet gets closest to the sun tomorrow. So we will know if that happens. And if it does, that could just make the comet even more bright. And then finally, there's one more thing that happens that normally doesn't apply. But because this comet is going between the sun and the Earth, you get sort of a backlighting effect where the light is coming in and lighting up the comet, but it's also being sort of deflected and scatter. It's called forward scattering. And you basically wind up with a surge in brightness when that happens. And so if you add all of that up, that's why we think that maybe this comet will become visible to the unaided eye, and potentially even a target for a very bright twilight sky or even in daylight. Now, before you scoff too loudly, I've seen a comet in daylight before. Back in 2006, I think it was, Comet McNaught. Nobody really knew about it because it wasn't a big deal until suddenly it popped around the sun and was visible to the unaided eye in the daylight. I stood beside the museum with the museum building blocking the sun just so it wasn't shining right in my eye, and I could see the comet. And then certainly in binoculars, it was easy all day. And then once the sun went down, it was blindingly obvious. It was what people expect a comet to look like. You know, nice and bright with a beautiful tail in the twilight and stuff like that. Yeah, Paul, you remember that one, hey? Yeah, McNaught was one of the better comets of recent years. And this will be the best comet since then, at the very least. Will it reach that level? We'll have to see. Now, October is not the clearest month in southern Manitoba. You know, often that's when we start getting rain and snow and things like that. We always have a little bit of snow by Halloween usually. Maybe we won't get that this year. Certainly the temperature is staying warmer longer, so we'll have to see what happens. There are people who are traveling to be able to see this comet. I mean, the fact that there is an eclipse down south sort of helped, you know, people that were already traveling for that. But there are people that are driving down into the United States to get as far south as they can, just to make that angle a little better, to make it a little, you know, to basically improve their odds. If you happen to be in the U.S., Chris, you're down near Houston, I think. You'll have a pretty good view, I think. And I think you'll be able to even see it in the early morning now. Martin Radcliffe, who's in Kansas, was able to spot it just above the horizon, just before sunrise. So you might want to take a look at that. It's rising just before the sun, and you have to be careful not to point your binoculars at the sun. Make sure you stop when the sun rises. But anyone farther down there, or anybody that's planning a trip, you have a better chance to see this comet. Here in Manitoba, we're going to go back to our stellarium here. Here in Manitoba, I'm going to say that there is no point looking for the comet until the 11th at the very earliest. Here's the scene at 7 p.m. on the 11th of October. And there's Venus over in the, oh, there we go. We'll lift up our things. Over in the southwest. The comet is over here, but I don't think it will be bright enough to see in that bright of a sky. The sun has just gone down, and so the sky is really bright at that point. But by the 12th, it's just a little bit farther up. And so maybe instead of 7 o'clock when the sky is still so bright, we wait till, 7:15. And that's just enough time for that sky to darken just a little bit, and we'll still be looking in twilight. But I think on the 12th is when we'll first see the comet. Take note, Wing. We need a nice flat western horizon for the Southwood Supper Club, or Southwood Circle, pardon me, event, if we can. If not, that's okay. I mean, we'll catch it the next night as well. The 13th and the 14th, I think the comet will become easy to see after sunset. So that is, the 12th, 13th, 14th, I would say keep those nights free so that you've got, whichever one happens to be clear, you're ready to go. What do you need to see this? Well, whatever you have. If you have eyes, use those. If you have binoculars, use those. If you have a small telescope, use those. You probably don't want or need a big telescope, because a big telescope is just going to zero in too much on the center part of the comet. And while that can be cool too, you probably want to see the whole comet, the whole, like the tail and things like that. And to give you a sense, if we turn off the, here, come back over here. If we turn off the atmosphere again, just so we can see that comet's tail, for relative scale, this comet tail is probably about 6 or 7 full moon diameters in length. So we're not talking about a small thing. We're talking about something that will fill your binocular field if it was in a dark sky. So you want to have a nice wide field of view. Like I say, I wouldn't, there's no point in, going out and getting an instrument for this. By the time you get it and learn how to use it, it'll be too late. But whatever you have will be perfect for observing the comet. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to fit in some other observing sessions. We'll definitely, as soon as it's visible, we'll be able to do some streaming, and we'll do some imaging of it as well. But pair of binoculars is really all you're going to need. Now, this comet is going to be basically just moving higher in the sky all the way through October. Technically, it's above our horizon through Christmas. Well, actually, it'll be above our horizon almost permanently from that point on. It's just that it gets so far away that we won't be able to see it, except in larger telescopes, and then in really large telescopes, and eventually it'll just fade off into the darkness. But based on the geometry, it still might have a nice tail of a couple of moon diameters towards the end of the month. So if we go all the way to, here we go, here's Halloween. You can see that it really fades away quite a bit. But if I take a look at, this is a small telescope view of the comet on Halloween night. If it's clear Halloween, I like to bring the telescope out and just have it there for the trick-or-treaters. They can all come by and they can look at the moon, or they can look at whatever. Well, this year, if all things go well, they'll be able to look at a comet, which will be kind of cool. So we'll have to see exactly how that pans out. But if you've never done Halloween trick-or-treat observing, even with binoculars or whatever, it's really fun. Highly recommend that as well. Okay. If you want to learn more about this comet, we have a segment in our planetarium shows, the Manitoba Skies shows, that talk all about it and recreate the views of the Manitoba here. Or you can get your own copy of Stellarium at stellarium.org. It's free, and you just download it and set it up. There's also Stellarium online, has a web version, and basically any place that does anything about the sky is going to be featuring this comet. So there's all sorts of ways to figure out how you can see it yourself. Now we've gone a little bit long, but, wing reports, we do have a good west view at the Southwood Circle observing site. That's fantastic. So there's your chance to come out and see the comet. And if we can't glimpse it that night, you'll be around when we set the next observing session to go and do it. So come and join us. Hollis, great question. Hollis asks, I heard in the news that Earth is getting a second moon for a little while. Is that real? Well, yeah. So we all know the moon. It goes around the Earth. There are occasionally other objects that are close to the Earth that kind of stick around the Earth's vicinity. Now, here's the thing. The moon technically doesn't just go around the Earth. Really, the moon goes around the sun because the Earth is going around the sun, and the moon's orbit is being perturbed, as we say, by the Earth's presence. So really, the moon is going around the sun, and it's getting sort of warped back and forth by the presence of the Earth. Well, that can happen to asteroids too. And so sometimes an asteroid will come by and basically get stuck in our gravitational field for a little while. And so there's this tiny asteroid that is going to be hanging around the Earth. And so people are calling it a second moon. This is not new. It's happened at least 3 times since 2001, because I remember writing a show in 2001 talking about the Earth's second moon. That one was called Creathne, and it was an asteroid, and it was basically in our area for a little while, and it would eventually then get sort of slingshot off and go back to its normal solar orbit. They usually stick around for a few months or a couple of years at most and then disappear. So this is the third time since then. It's probably been happening all the time. And there's probably other ones that are just too small for us to even notice. Space isn't empty. There's lots of stuff going on. Is it a moon? Well, I think that's overstating it. I think it's certainly something that is, interacting with us, but the moon is in a stable orbit that is, perturbed by the Earth, but in a regular, predictable way. It's not just a temporary thing. I think if we start calling every little thing that just stops by for a few months a moon, we're going to run into the, how are the kids going to remember all the names of the moons when they have to learn that in grade 6? It's just too many things. So I'm tending to not call it a second moon, but the press certainly likes to call it that. Okay, we have to go on to
Cool space stuff.
So there's a lot of cool space stuff, and we're just going to cover a little bit of it because we're running a little bit long here. The International Space Station crew that's supposed to go up has been grounded by the big tropical storm that is coming in to pummel Florida. They're delayed for a little while, and so hopefully that will not cause any damage, and people will be able to people will be able to get the Falcon crew off to the International Space Station. It's only 2 people going up instead of 4 because, of course, they're saving 2 empty seats for those 2 astronauts that were not stranded but had their mission extended, shall we say, by the Boeing Starliner mess. There was another space mission that was actually pretty cool. This is, billionaires in space, I know, but the Polaris Dawn mission. It's a SpaceX partnership with a billionaire, and it had the very first space walk by a private citizen, actually a couple of them. And most importantly, it's testing the EVA suits that will be used on the moon landing missions. So it had some value to it. 2 astronauts got out and basically tested the suits and put it through a bunch of, yoga tests and stretches and things like that to make sure how it would function when you're out there in space. And so that will really help. That's the first thing that SpaceX has sort of done related to the actual moon landing that they're supposed to be doing in a year and a half in quite a while. So it's nice to see some progress being made on that. And they came in for Falcon's first water landing, so that was kind of nice too. The Boeing Starliner did not explode. It came home empty, just in case it might explode, because there were all sorts of problems with it. There's going to be a big mess around that, and that will certainly delay Josh Kutrick, Canadian astronaut's flight. He's supposed to go up to the International Space Station on the next Starliner, so who knows when that will happen. It landed on the Earth as it was supposed to, and it's got little airbags there, so that was kind of cool. Now I'm going to flip back to Stellarium here. One of the things that I use Stellarium for is to just to see what's going on in the sky, obviously, but it doesn't just do planets and comets and things like that. It also does satellites. And so in about 2 minutes, this bright light will come up out of the west over by where Booties is. And if I fast forward it, it will rise up almost all the way across the sky. And here, we'll just pop it a minute forward there. And you can go out and watch the International Space Station go across. This is for southern Manitoba. So if you're somewhere else, you won't have the same view. But it's always a nice thing to catch this. And right now we're in a bunch of passes of the space station where it's nice and bright and beautiful. Check it out in binoculars. You can actually see a little bit of the shape, and certainly in a telescope, if you happen to take a look at the ISS in a telescope, if you can track it, you can actually see the shape of it. get out there and look at the stars. We'll be out on the 12th looking at the comet, and you can stay tuned through the Manitoba Museum for any events that come up. Come and join us tomorrow for the astronaut event, and we've got a whole bunch of other things that we'll try and put on for you that we weren't able to fit into the show today. There's so much content, we might have to go back to doing more than one show a month. So, thank you to everybody who contributed to the show. Always great to see you all. And hopefully, send me pictures, send me questions, send me content for the show, and I would love to be able to respond to the things that you would like to know about. Go outside and look at the space station. We'll see you again later.